You pick it up before your eyes are fully open, before coffee, before a word to anyone, before you even decide to. Your hand finds the phone on the nightstand like it always does, like a reflex you never chose, and you are already scrolling before you realize you have started. You tell yourself it is just a habit, a bad one maybe, something you will fix eventually. But it is not a habit. It is something far older than a habit. And the answer to why you cannot stop starts not in Silicon Valley, but somewhere in the tall grass of the African savanna, about 2 million years ago. Your brain was not built for the world you are living in. That is not an insult. It is a survival story. The brain you carry right now is, structurally speaking, nearly identical to the brain your ancestors were using when they were scanning the horizon for predators, reading the sky for weather, watching the edges of the group for strangers. It is a detection machine, a novelty machine, a threat and reward machine tuned to a world that no longer exists. And now that machine is holding a small glass rectangle that delivers 10,000 stimuli a day. No wonder you cannot put it down. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan spent decades separating what he called the wanting system from the liking system in the brain. And what he found changed how we understand craving entirely. The neurotransmitter dopamine, the one you hear about constantly, does not actually produce the feeling of pleasure. It produces the feeling of wanting, anticipation, the drive to seek. When your phone buzzes, or when you think it might have buzzed, your dopamine system fires, not because something good happened, because something good might happen. That distinction matters more than almost anything else in understanding your relationship with the device in your pocket. Your ancestors needed this system desperately. The rustle in the grass might be the wind, or it might be a lion. The dopamine system made them check. Every time, without negotiating with themselves about it. The ones who ignored the rustle died. The ones who checked survived. You are descended from the ones who checked. And now the rustle is a notification. A red dot on an app. An unread number. A message you have not seen yet. Your ancient brain does not know the difference. It never evolved to know the difference. So it does exactly what it was built to do. It makes you look. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered something in the mid-20th century that the technology industry would later exploit with extraordinary precision. When a reward arrives on a predictable schedule, animals eventually stop responding with urgency. They know when the reward is coming. They relax in between. But when the reward arrives randomly, the behavior becomes compulsive. This is called variable ratio reinforcement. It is the same mechanism behind slot machines. Pull the lever, and maybe you win, maybe you do not. But the uncertainty is the thing that keeps you pulling. Your phone is a slot machine you carry everywhere. Sometimes you pick it up and there is something wonderful waiting. A message from someone you love, news that made you laugh, a notification that someone liked what you put out into the world. And sometimes there is nothing. But your brain cannot predict which it will be, so it demands you check. Over and over, at a frequency that has nothing to do with logic and everything to do with the same wiring that kept your ancestors alive in a world that punished inattention. Here is the counterintuitive part. You are not weak for doing this. You are not addicted in a moral sense. You are not lacking discipline in any meaningful way. You are, neurologically speaking, working exactly as designed. The designers of the platforms in your pocket understood this.
Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris has spoken at length about the deliberate engineering of what he calls attention extraction, the conscious construction of systems specifically tuned to exploit the wanting circuitry in your prefrontal cortex. The red notification badge, the infinite scroll that never delivers a final endpoint. The pull to refresh gesture that mimics the physical motion of a slot machine lever. None of these are accidents. They are precise. But there is another layer here that most people never hear about. Your ancestors did not just scan for threats. They scanned for social information. Who was in the group? Who was out? What the others were doing? What they thought? Whether you were included? Whether you were excluded? In a small band of 30 to 50 people, social information was survival information. Being ostracized from the group in a world without refrigerators, grocery stores, or hospitals was effectively a death sentence.
So your brain evolved to monitor social signals with the same urgency it monitored physical danger. And what does your phone deliver in greater volume than almost anything else? Social information. You are not checking Instagram because you are frivolous. You are checking it because your brain is running ancient survival software that treats a comment on your photo as roughly equivalent in importance to your standing in the tribe. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, best known for his research on the cognitive limits of human social groups, has argued that the human brain is primarily a social organ. Its size, its complexity, the sheer metabolic cost of running it are all disproportionate to what you would need just to navigate physical space. What drove the expansion of the human brain, Dunbar suggests, was the complexity of managing relationships in an increasingly intricate social world. You are walking around with a hyper-developed social processing system, and in your hand, you hold a device that gives that system an infinite stream of social input to process. That is what the scroll is. It is your tribal monitoring system, running on global scale, with no off switch. Now, here is where it becomes strange. Most people who struggle with phone use describe the same paradox. They pick it up looking for something. They rarely find it. They put it down feeling slightly worse than before. And then, within minutes, they pick it up again. The wanting does not require satisfaction to continue. It only requires the possibility of satisfaction. That is how it was in the savanna. You scanned the horizon not because every scan revealed a predator, but because one scan eventually would. The frequency of the behavior was determined not by its yield, but by the stakes of being wrong. You were never scanning for what was there. You were scanning against the possibility of missing what might be. And you still are. This does not mean you are powerless, but it does mean that willpower alone is a misunderstanding of the problem. Telling yourself to stop checking your phone is like telling yourself to stop responding to the rustle in the grass. You can do it, but it costs something. The researchers who study this, people like Jean Twenge, whose longitudinal work on generational technology use at San Diego State University has tracked behavioral shifts across millions of young people, and Adam Alter, whose book on behavioral addiction brought the science of compulsive behavior into the mainstream, both arrive at similar conclusions. The pull of the phone is not a character flaw. It is a design problem meeting a biology problem. And solving it requires understanding what the design is doing to the biology, not simply blaming yourself for responding to it. The most effective interventions are not about willpower. They are about environment. Keeping the phone out of the bedroom, turning off notifications entirely, setting specific windows for checking rather than allowing the device to interrupt your attention on its own schedule. Creating physical and temporal distance between yourself and the device. Because what your brain is doing when it demands you check is not irrational. It is executing an ancient subroutine that has never been updated for a world of infinite digital information. The subroutine says, new information might be important. Check it. Always check it. The subroutine was right for most of human history. The world changed. The subroutine did not. So tonight, when you reach for the phone before your eyes are fully open in the morning, understand what is actually happening. You are not being weak. You are not failing at self-control. You are an animal built for the savanna, living in a world of engineered grass. And somewhere in the tall grass, the rustle is always waiting.